p.m. Welcome to Washington City Council meeting. I'm Mayor Cress Staley. Today is Wednesday, January 12th. We are here in the Washington City Council chambers. This meeting is also being broadcast live via YouTube, and you can follow that on washingtoncity.org/meetings. As we begin our meeting, I've invited a retired American Baptist minister and a personal friend of mine, Alex Wilkie, to offer the invocation.
Let us pray. Today, very early in the new year, we pray for the mayor and the city council as they meet in session for today's meeting. We seek the Lord Jesus Christ to be with all in attendance for this meeting today. Bless all in attendance this day. We pray for blessings on each council member and for the mayor alike. And this we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Alex. We appreciate you. Before we move on to the Pledge of Allegiance, by raise of hand, do we have any of those who have served in the military? Could you raise your hand? Thank you for your service. Washington City has a great heritage of patriotism and military service, and we always want to respect and honor those who have served. I've asked Washington City firefighter Chris Noel if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you come forward, Chris.
Will you all please stand? Follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chris. And we appreciate our firefighters very much. At this time, I will turn to the council for a motion to approve the agenda.
Mayor, before we approve the agenda, may I request that we table item 4CI for 60 days to our March 9th City Council meeting?
So do you want to discuss it? I'm just curious why.
This item is a hillside agenda item, and we wanted to have time to discuss it with the council, discuss the situation there.
Councilman, have you spoke to other council members, and is there a general consensus that you'd like to table this item?
So I serve on the Hillside Review Committee, and the way the schedule lined up, this particular item here just needs discussion, in my opinion, and before it's approved. And I would ask the council just to give us an opportunity to visit about it, and then get consensus from the council to move forward.
So when's the Hillside meeting scheduled, I guess?
On this item?
On this item.
That's something that we probably need to discuss.
So I appreciate the conversation, council members. I think what I'd like to do is I'll call for a motion to approve the agenda. When we get to item 4CI as part of the consent agenda, if one of you would like to make that as part of your motion and have any discussion on it, I think we'll handle it at that time. But right now, what I'll call for is a motion to approve the agenda as outlined.
Mayor, I motion to approve the agenda as outlined.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Henderson, a second by Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item 2, which is announcements. So tomorrow morning, Thursday, January 13th, is the What's Up Down South Economic Summit. It starts bright and early. I think most of us will be there, as well as planning commissioners and some of our staff. That'll be a great event, a great opportunity for us to find out what's happening economically across the county. Monday, January 17th is Martin Luther King Day. The city offices will be closed. January 18th through March 4th is the Utah State Legislative Session. We'll all be following that closely and interacting with our state elected officials as necessary. And we are working towards a visit to the Hill early February. Tuesday, January 18th at 4 p.m., we'll be conducting a special council meeting to fill a council vacancy. Wednesday, January 19th at 4 p.m. until 5:30 p.m. will be a city council workshop meeting. And then our planning commission meeting will start at 6 p.m. that night. Thursday, January 20th at 7 p.m. at the Relief Society Hall, the Historical Society lecture series continues with a topic of taming the Virgin River. I've been to a few of those. It's very interesting if you have time to go. And our next council meeting is scheduled, our next regular council meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, January 26th at 4 p.m. Are there any other announcements that I didn't address already?
Just a question on the What's Up Down South for tomorrow. What time? It says 7 on our calendars. Is it really 7?
7 a.m.?
Yeah, that's a little early for Councilman Ivy, I know for sure.
That's just the breakfast part of it. It doesn't start till later.
So show up at 7:50. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Where's the location for that, Mayor?
So that's at the Dixie Center. And you should have tickets in your email.
Yeah.
So great, looking forward to that. Item 3 is declarations of abstentions and conflicts. Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Council.
sorry. I don't know if I should wait till the end, but you had mentioned that we're going to do the police event in February, but we actually have changed that date. And so that will be on March 22nd at 5 p.m.
Fantastic.
And it'll be a little bit warmer and we'll have a little bit more daylight. So.
And what are we calling that event?
You had named it We Love Our Police event, so we could just go with that.
Okay, sounds good. So March 22nd, 5 p.m., we will have an event honoring and showing appreciation for our police department. I'm sure you all prepared and looked through the agenda. Are there any declarations of items you will abstain from or any conflicts you'd just like to declare? Great. Seeing none, we'll go to the consent agenda, which is item 4. Item 4A, approval of minutes from the city council meetings of 12/8/21, 1/3/22, and 1/5/22. Item 4B is the board audit report for December 2021. Item 4C is a final plat for Finlay Farms, Phase 1B. Item 4C, that's item 4CI. Item 4CII is final plat for Franklin Fields, Phase 1. Item 4D, final plat amendments. 4DI is for Desert Ridge, Phase 1A and 1B. And 4DII is a final plat amendment for Eagle Summit Estates. I will look to the council for any questions, discussions, and/or a motion.
Mayor, I'll just start that discussion again with the previously noted agenda item. I serve on the Hillside Committee, and there's something that I feel strongly that the council needs to address and talk about prior to approval of this agenda item. I would ask the council to approve that so that we can have a discussion and then approve it after the information has been shared, if that's the right way the council wants to go.
I think the only thing I have is I just want a meeting set for the Hillside. I don't know, Drew, do we have that set currently?
It has not been set yet, but that goes to the root of the problem that we need to discuss.
I understand that. I'm just trying to move forward that we get a meeting set if it's in the next week or whatever, as long as Drew can get that set up for the Hillside. I know we have to get those professionals out there when the schedule works for them. and look at it.
We've been working with staff and the applicant to find a date that will work, but as of this minute, I don't believe one's been set.
Okay.
Okay, I'm hearing that, that the applicant will apply and meet with the Hillside Committee?
As of right now, there is no application, so I don't know if you want to ask the applicant if that is an intent or not, Mayor. That's
Adam, do you represent the applicant on this? Come forward.
I do. And after some
So this
discussion,
is, just state your name.
sorry, Adam Allen, American Land Consulting. So after much discussion with the owners of the project, there was some confusion on their side with their preliminary plat, some other things that have happened. We've applied for the townhome portion to go through Hillside, and that Hillside's gonna be on January 20th, but they will bring forth the phase 6, or I guess the rest of it. Phase 6 encompasses all the Hillside area of the Finley Farms. And so they want to work with you guys. They had assumed they had something done that wasn't done, and so they want to make sure, in the spirit of working and moving forward, that they come in and talk with you guys about what's going on, meet with Hillside. But as of today, we have not submitted, but we will get submitted to be on the very next Hillside meeting for that area.
Councilman Coates, does that sound okay to you? Great, thanks, Adam.
Thank
Is
you.
there any further discussion on any of the consent agenda items?
Can I just make one? So phase 1B, the part that is in there, is not in any of the Hillside area.
That's correct.
Just so you guys know. But
Right.
yeah, we will get that in as soon as possible.
Thank you.
So Mayor, if I can make a motion that we table 4CI until after the Hillside meeting.
Perfect. And Councilman Henderson, if there's no further discussion on the consent agenda, do you want to motion to approve the consent agenda with tabling item 4DI?
Yes.
I have a motion by Henderson.
I will second that, Mayor.
I have a second by Ivy.
So I got it.
Hold on just one sec.
Sorry, didn't he say that for this one was not in the Hillside?
right, but it's C. I just want to make sure because it's down. but
Or
it's C.
CI.
Yeah.
So,
But that's phase 1B, but that phase 1B doesn't address the Hillside. So why are we tabling this one?
I believe that discussion's probably better served in another format, but do we have,
Well, if this isn't in the Hillside, I don't know how we can table it for the Hillside. For that reason is my question. I understand that this might be another phase, but how do we table
Oh,
phase 1B?
so let me share what happened. I'm on the Hillside Committee for Washington City. We were out there looking at another project. It was noticed that part of this was the Hillside was cut without proper authorization to do that, without any application. Now we want to work with the applicant to find a way to rectify the problem and to move forward. But the conversation we need to have is far more complex than I feel like we can have at this point. I have information I'd like to share.
Okay, and I'm happy for the information. I just see this as does nothing. I mean, I understand it's the same subdivision, but it's not on the Hillside, so I don't know how we can table it for that. That's just my opinion.
The concern is that by approving other projects, it may impact the mitigation for this. Whereas that's why we want to hit pause and look at it, because there might be something in approving this where they move forward with that makes it so that this can't be mitigated to a level that we'll be comfortable with. And that's the reason for it.
I'll look to
Well, do you
Drew.
think we should get some, I don't know, is Thad here?
Thad, are
Your turn?
are you online with us? Would like just some legal clarification on tabling item 4CI while we address the Hillside issue on another phase of this development?
So Mayor, I don't believe he's on yet. He's at another meeting and hasn't joined us yet, but
All right, I'll Jeremy, if you want to address that, or Drew?
yeah, I believe you can table it if you want to. There's nothing that precludes you from doing that. It's just your choice.
I just want to make sure we're not doing any. That's my concern, is that it has. I feel like it's not a part of that other project. Now, could it affect it? Yeah, so could a lot of other things. So, I mean, if the applicant's fine with holding it over 2 weeks, I'm all about holding it over 2 weeks on this application, but I think but if we can't address it within the 2 weeks, then I want to move forward with this phase 1B, because it's not in the hillside zone, so we can't use that as a reason to table it.
Great. I appreciate your comments, Councilman, and appreciate your concern. I think there's a general consensus that the best interest is going to have this be for this to come, the other phase to come to Hillside Committee on January 20th, and this to come back on an agenda.
There is a date then, January 20th.
Is that what I heard, Adam? Did you say January 20th?
January 20th is for another portion. It's the townhome portion, so it's not the phase that already has a preliminary plat on that has been worked on.
So the tabling would be until after Hillside Committee can meet and review the other phase?
But, I mean, I know why the applicants aren't gonna wanna do that. They've already got almost all their utilities in, power is going in. I mean, gas is going in on all this. We've had approved construction drawings and stuff for a long time on these phases. So, I mean, obviously, they're gonna wanna kind of move things forward on the phases they can.
Right.
In the nature of working with, with what we can and cannot. I mean, as it sits right now, when we go to Hillside, when we go and talk through that, we've just spent 1.5 years getting an NRCS line moved and approved to be moved. So we'll have to, I mean, I can't change anything beyond that NRCS line in this. So on this side, it would make no difference.
Right. So I'm kind of hearing this discussion for the first time as well tonight, so I appreciate where you're coming from. On the one hand, I understand that this particular phase doesn't really have anything to do with the other phase, that there's questions about the hillside. I think what the councilman is trying to accomplish is a resolution to a hillside issue in another phase. And the question I think that the council really needs to determine with the motion that's on the table is, do we want to table this item for 2 weeks or until the hillside issue can be resolved on the other phase or not? And that's really what's on the table. And unless is there further discussion on this, or are we ready to vote and you can make your decisions?
Well, is there a way that we can focus on this phase and then deal with the other phase with the hillside? So because this phase, it conforms to the approved preliminary plat. And so, and then we can deal with the other phase separately, and do the hillside for that phase that is having the issues with.
That's a great question. Any thoughts, comments on that,
Yes,
Council?
Councilwoman, let me address that. The reason that we're asking for this agenda item to be tabled is that it may very well need to be part of the mitigation to fix the hillside that has been already cut. And until we have a conversation and know what those parameters are, I would just rather be safe than sorry. And for me, that's my assignment on the Hillside Committee, and that's my recommendation to you. But of course, you have the right to choose the way you want. So,
And I appreciate that, Councilman Ivy. I look at this phase, I mean, it's already built. I mean, water lines are in the ground. I mean, what are we gonna go move water lines and all that? I don't think it's gonna affect the hillside. Now, they might not be able to construct that next phase and do mitigation on that phase, but this phase, I don't see it affecting it. So I'm open to table it for 2 weeks, but in 2 weeks, we better decide what we're doing as far as moving forward with this phase 1B.
I don't see a problem with having a hillside review in that time frame.
Great.
But we haven't, yeah, okay.
And that can be done.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's my recommendation now
Yeah,
to the
I'm
motion is
very
to
good with
amend
that.
that so that the tabling is for only 2 weeks.
So I'll look to Councilman Henderson again on this one. So I think the motion would be to approve the consent agenda with item 4CI being tabled to our January 26th council meeting to give time to work through the issues with Hillside on a different phase. And that's probably a reasonable timeframe and a reasonable resolution.
Yeah, so Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of 4CI, which we will table and talk about in 2 weeks.
I have a motion by Henderson,
Second that.
a second by Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item 5, resolutions. On resolutions, I will call, I'll ask for roll call votes. So on those, it'll be a little bit different than others. On resolutions and ordinances, I'll state your last name and ask for a roll call vote. So resolution, item 5A is a resolution amending the master fee schedule, city recorder Tara Pence.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is actually just an amendment to our original passed ordinance of 2008. You will find that throughout the year. If you look in your packet, we periodically make adjustments on our master fee schedule. Those changes have already been made. If there's anything large, occasionally we'll make minor adjustments that are required, like by our solid waste district, things that are already called out, those are made. But we just want to, for being clear and organized, once a year, we'll approve a master fee schedule in its entirety, so we can look back on that and know from that day forward is when this one was adopted. So this is essentially housekeeping. All of those other fees that were in your packet have been taken care of throughout the year.
All right, Tara, thank you. Is there anything else that you'd want to point out? I will just mention to the council that it's been provided in your packet. There's 19 pages of it. Are you ready to field any questions or?
The only other thing I would like you to note, we have never included the justice court fees in our master fee schedule before, so they are now being included. And just as a courtesy, we'd like the council to approve that as well.
Does the council have any questions for our city recorder in regards to the updated master fee schedule for 2022?
Yes, Mayor, just a question. Ms. Pence, what precipitates an increase? Is it based on just the fact that it's needed to cover costs, or is there is the fee schedule more of a timeline trigger?
Depending on the department, we've had quite a few decreases. If you look on some of them, most of the time it's just covering costs, or if it's a fee that comes up, we're actually a pass through, and they have an incremental fee like yearly. Those will be on there as an increase. Most of them, though, are just to even out fees, or there's even some decreases this year.
Any further questions for our recorder? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the master fee schedule.
I have a motion by Coates,
I'll second it.
a second by Casperson. We'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Ivy.
Aye.
Coates,
Aye.
Henderson,
Aye.
Casperson.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 5B, a resolution appointing a representative from Washington City Council to the Southwest Mosquito Abatement and Control District. As a notice in our first meeting, I recommend Council Member Brett Henderson serve in that capacity. Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a motion.
Mayor, I would be happy to make that motion to approve Councilman Brett Henderson to be appointed a representative from Washington City Council to the Southwest Mosquito Abatement and Control District.
I have a motion by Ivy,
Second by Coates.
second by Coates. Roll call vote. We'll start with Coates.
Aye.
Henderson. Casperson.
Aye.
Ivy.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 5C is a resolution designating a representative to serve on the Administrative Control Board of Washington County Special Service District Number 1. And I'm again recommending that Councilmember Craig Coates continues to serve in that capacity. If there's any discussion, I'm happy to hear that. If not, I'll call for a motion.
Mayor, I
Go ahead.
move that we approve designating Councilman Coates to serve on the control board of the Washington County Special Service District.
Great, I have a motion by Henderson,
I'll second it.
second by Casperson. Roll call vote. We'll start with Henderson,
Aye.
Casperson,
Aye.
Ivy,
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 4D is also a resolution, and it is a resolution to approve and appoint members to the Employee Appeals Board, City Manager Jeremy Redd.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution R2022 appoints employees to the Employee Appeal Board. The employees that I would like to appoint, the permanent members would be Corey Klotz, Barry Blake, and Mike Roosh. And the alternates would be Leanna Bishop, Jeremy Severe, Mike Faulkner, and Melody Hayes. And that would be my recommendation.
It's Mike Faulkner. Is that what you said?
Josh.
It says Josh.
It's Josh. Sorry, we have Mike on here, but it's Josh.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Thank you, Manager. And just as a matter of note, currently, I've recommended and assigned Councilman Henderson to serve on the Employee Appeals Board. And looking at our ordinance, we should actually have 2 council members. So I'll bring forward another member from this body to serve on that as well on a future agenda. Is there any discussion on the Employee Appeal Board's appointees?
No, I'll make a motion, Mayor, to approve the appointees for the Employee Appeals Board.
I have a motion by Coates,
I will second that, Mayor.
a second by Ivy. Roll call vote. Ivy?
Aye.
Coates?
Aye.
Henderson?
Aye.
Casperson?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to item 6, which is preliminary plat. Just a little bit of procedure on what to expect from this. I'll call forward a staff member, and on these 3 items, it'll be our city planner, Eldon Gibb. We'll give him a chance to give the staff report in full. Once he's been able to give that staff report, then I will look to the council for any questions you may have of staff member or of the applicant. If you have thoughts or questions while they're giving the report, please just jot those down or keep those in mind, and then I'll turn to you and make sure you have plenty of opportunity to ask questions, make comments, discuss before a motion is made. So item 4A is consideration to approve a preliminary plat for Indian Rivers located at approximately 1150 South Indian Springs Drive. City Planner Eldon Gibb.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plat for the Indian River subdivision located at approximately Indian Springs Drive and Seminole Way. This particular subdivision is proposing 3 lots on an area covering 1.85 acres. The zoning designation at this location was recently rezoned to residential agriculture half-acre minimum. The surrounding zoning is RA half to the north and east, agricultural 20 to the south, and planned unit development to the west. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on December 15th, 2021, and unanimously recommended approval of the preliminary plat for the Indian Rivers subdivision based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions, along with adding condition 13 to maintain access to the property to the north. And we're happy to answer any questions at this time.
What is the need for the access to the north?
So Planning Commission was just concerned that that piece would be landlocked just to the side of Lot 3. There's a piece of land there. And the applicant has no intent to landlock that piece. They're just kind of weighing out their options at this point.
We'll need to show an easement through Lot 3. Because we can't use the canal as an access to that lot. Because it'll be a city trail someday, and that was the city's property at one point. And
Councilman Coates, so I see the easement going through lots 1 and 2.
but the Sunwood Homes property, how are they accessing? How are they getting access to their property? Are they getting
Yeah,
access through the
that did
Mesa
come up in the
Shadows?
Planning Commission meeting. I think they were confident that through the cul-de-sac to the north, that there would be future access. They didn't seem to be worried about that one, but that 13th condition was something that the Planning Commission was unanimous on, and the applicant was happy to accommodate, was just that 30-foot easement through 1 and 2 to get to Lot 3. But you're
Oh, so they added that from 1 and 2 to get to 3, but do you need one for, because the access has to, I'm assuming that there's already flag lots on it.
Yeah, so The 13th condition is that they extend the shared 30-foot access to the landlocked piece to maintain access. So that was the 13th condition that the Planning Commission
And that's what I'm saying.
recommended.
too.
And
It doesn't
does that go through, or you're saying it doesn't show it on the
Doesn't show it
map?
on the map is all I'm saying.
Yeah, if this comes forth as a final plat, it will be on there as a final plat. But the applicant anticipates this may change.
Okay. It will,
I know there was some concerns about the drainage from other residents. Will that retaining wall, if you're gonna do the road, will that retaining wall go over as well? And then will you also be doing, you know, the drain connection, extending it on lot 3? You're gonna be doing the road to have the access, but it stops, the retaining wall stops at 2. But will there be a need? I know that there was a concern for the drainage that I'd mentioned at the Planning Commission.
Yeah, I haven't been on site to actually get a visual on the elevation differences
It's higher.
on that.
I don't know if you guys have been there.
so it looks as if they plan on building a secondary retaining wall, because I'm pretty sure the existing lots block walls they're not retaining walls currently. They're just standard CMU walls. And so it looks like per their plan, they got a secondary retaining wall, 4-foot one there, and then they have a storm drain pipe that's coming through it to convey the water on the south end of that project.
But just on 1 and 2, but not on 3.
But it's an open ditch. It looks like it's an open ditch on 3.
I just didn't know if they would do that with the road and the access that they're gonna have with the 13th, you know, the condition.
Yeah, I think looking at that, it'll come at construction drawings when they get into the fine details of it, that they'll have to convey their water not onto the lot, so we can make a condition that all their water has to convey to the street, Indian Springs Drive.
I see the applicant is here. Applicant, would you like to address that, or is that accurate, what's been stated by the council members?
James Jessup with Sunwood Homes. Yes, if there is a need, after we get the construction plans done, we will be continuing that wall as far as it needs to go. Because there is, like Craig said, there is already a privacy wall that's not a retaining wall, so we'll need to go behind that and retain whatever's needed.
Thanks,
And then we
James.
are aware of the easement as well.
Okay.
That we'll put that on the construction and the final plat. If nothing works out with the neighbors, we'll just come back and amend it and add it to lot 3.
James, just curiosity, are you planning on paving that section of the trail?
No, not that I know of.
I'm just asking because it is an impact fee eligible trail, so.
Okay, we haven't. We've left it open as an easement, but we haven't considered paving it at all.
Just asking.
Mr. Jessup, what is the height of the retaining wall or block wall? Just,
It will taper from 0 down to Indian Springs Drive, and we haven't done our final grading. I think at one point it will be up to the grade close to the top of that privacy wall. The dirt grade goes from the bottom of that wall. Actually, it's kind of been sloughed down.
but you're not looking to go above grade.
Above actual existing grade? No.
Okay, thank you.
Drew, before I look to the council for any further discussion and or a motion, do we need to consider a 14th condition in regards to the conveyance of water, or can that be handled through staff with construction drawings?
It'll be handled. If you look at I think it's note number 1 or 2, it talks about a drainage study and all that. And the city requires that all drainage go to the street unless there's some alternative that's been set up in place through, either the canal company or someone else. But our standard is for it to be drained to the street. So I think note number 1 or 2 or both should cover that.
Right. Council, any further discussion on this? As you consider a motion, I would take into account the Planning Commission's recommendation of a 13th condition, and I'll look to the council for a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve item 6A for the preliminary plat for the Indian Rivers located at approximately 1150 South Indian Springs Drive with the findings and conditions provided by staff. All the conditions outlined.
And the 13th wasn't actually listed on there just yet, at least in the review that I saw. It's in the minutes from the Planning Commission
With item 13.
with the
Condition
30-foot shared
13.
access.
Through lot 3.
Perfect. I have a motion by Coates.
Mayor, I'll second it.
that.
I'm going to give that one to Henderson, a second by Henderson. We do not have to do a roll call vote on this one, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to item 6B. This is consideration to approve a preliminary plat for Frontier Subdivision Phase 2, located at approximately 2200 East Washington Dam Road. City Planner Eldon Gibb.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plat for the Frontier Phase 2 subdivision located at approximately 2200 East Washington Dam Road. This subdivision is proposing 6 lots on an area covering 6 acres. The zoning designation at this location was recently rezoned to include RA half-acre minimum to the south of the public utility easement and residential agriculture 2-acre minimum to the north of the public utility easement. The surrounding zoning is open space to the north, RA2 to the east, RA5 and R130 to the south, with RA1 to the west. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. The Planning Commission did review this request on December 15th, 2021, and unanimously recommended approval of the preliminary plat for the Frontier Phase 2 subdivision based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions, along with adding condition 13, which reads, a 6-foot privacy block wall will be installed behind the lots 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26, extending from Washington Dam Road to the farthest point of lot 26.
Thank you, Eldon. Is that your report?
That is, yes.
Perfect. Before I open this up to the council to ask questions, I'll just make a note on preliminary plats that the public hearings on preliminary plats are held at the Planning Commission level. So while this is a public meeting, this preliminary plat items are not open for public comment, and it's not a public hearing tonight. Council, any questions that you have for our city planner?
Only comment I have is on lot 27, that 25-foot flag lot. We need to be provided public utility and access easement so that we can get to the area that's being dedicated to the city and the utility lines. So we just need to add that on the final plat. So I'm going to make that an additional condition.
Perfect.
Does that make sense to everyone? So on lot 27, there's a flag lot, and to get access from the quick draw drive down to the parcel below, we got to be able to have an access to get in there.
I believe that was part of the discussion. So you're saying to leave that part open from the block wall?
I'm just saying right now, it doesn't say that it's a public, an access. I'm just saying we need to, it'll be a drive approach for 27, but we need to have public utility and access easement across that flag section.
So you're asking for a 14th condition essentially on that? Great. Do you see any issues with that, Eldon?
No, I think that is what was intended as well, just kind of misworded.
And then the applicant is here. I was at that planning commission meeting. It seems like they were in favor of the block wall. Brandy, you're good with the block wall? Great. So we're looking at the additional conditions 13 with the wall as noted by planning commission and a condition 14 with the easement. Great. I'll look to this council for further discussion and or a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve preliminary plat for the Frontier Subdivision Phase 2 located approximately 2200 East Washington Dam Road with the findings and conditions provided by staff with the additional condition, is it 14?
Yeah, 13 would be the wall and 14 would be the easement.
I was just going to do one. Sorry. I'm trying to get, I was on it then lost it. Sorry. All right, so I'm going to restate it. With the findings and conditions provided by staff with condition number 14, 13's on there already. So condition 14, that lot 27 flag portion of that lot have a public utility easement and access easement on the final plat.
Okay, I'm following you. Just 1 second, Councilman Coates. I just want to see that 13th. It's not showing on what I'm looking at.
It was on my breakdown here. 6B Frontier.
Right. So I have a motion by Councilmember Coates. I'm adding an additional condition 14. Do I have a second? Second by Member Casperson. Nice save there. That's what I've just been doing last names. I have a second by Casperson. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, item 6C is consideration to approve a preliminary plat for North Rim Farms located at approximately 300 East, 4800 South, City Planner Eldon Gibb.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. On October 13th, 2021, City Council tabled this item to give the applicant time to complete the hillside review process. The applicant has completed the hillside review process and is asking for approval at this time. The applicant has taken the Hillside Review Committee recommendations into account and modified the location of the rockfall catch berm, breaking the berm into 3 segments to enhance the aesthetics. The applicant is planning to work with the geotechnical engineer to maintain slope stabilization and erosion control measures as noted on the plat. The Hillside Review Committee minutes have been attached to this report as seen in your report. And with a couple new council members on there, I'll just revisit what we're doing here. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plat for the North Rim Farm subdivision. The applicant is proposing 45 lots on an area covering 21.04 acres. The zoning designation at this particular location is residential, 10,000 square foot minimum. The surrounding zoning is R110 to the north, planned community development to the east and south, and St. George property to the west. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning, and the request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. And we're happy to answer any questions at this time.
Right, Council, we'll turn to you now to ask staff any questions you may have.
I would just add my 2 cents to this. We did meet as the Hillside Committee on site. We discussed, I have reviewed the minutes that are included on this agenda item, and the minutes are accurate. We did discuss the natural vegetation, how the overlay would work, how it would fit. We talked about the catchment basin, and we made recommendations that was accepted by the applicant, and that's all I have. Thanks.
Oh, There's no
So
others.
this particular parcel here, Councilman, is just directly south of the other piece in Finley Farms where we've been discussing the cut. And my question for you as the Hillside Liaison is, and we appreciate the applicant and we think this is going to be a great project, but we also recognize the beauty of these natural hillsides and these natural slopes. Can you share, I know when the Hillside Committee met there was a recommendation for the cut, and I appreciate that. I'm also just looking maybe for some discussion on the protection of that toe of the hillside. It looked like that was going to be 20 feet or more, so I would just look to the council and to have any other comments or thoughts along those lines.
I think they held it to 20 feet, which most houses will cover that. So we probably won't see that scar. I mean, this is much better than the first round, which went 30 feet up the hill in some locations. So I think they've done a good job modifying it based on the slope, and I think they did a pretty good job. That's where I stand compared to with the first application we saw. I'm still concerned about the 1-to-1, but the geotech says it'll hold, so.
We did discuss the 1-to-1, 2-to-1, and I had some of the same concerns, but that's what was agreed upon.
Mayor, if I could make a comment, I was just out there yesterday at the site, and that's a beautiful little hillside with the rocks and the vegetation. And I appreciate the developer taking the time and interest to meet with the Hillside Committee to make sure that they preserve the overall look of the area. That's to be commended, so.
Well, I sure appreciate these comments, council. I might just, and I know the applicant, and I couldn't think more highly of the applicant and their representation. I just invite them maybe to come forward and maybe on the record, just maybe address, I understand the cut and the height, and then that's been mitigated, but just would like you to be on the record for anything you can do to maintain the natural beauty and integrity of that slope. I know when I was at Crimson Cliffs High a few months ago and looked out at the other area that had been cut, it left a little bit of a concern, a little bit of pit in my stomach to see how high they'd cut up. So I just want to hear how you'll do it and what we can expect from you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Rick Meyer with Bush and Gudgel, and thanks for considering this tonight. We did go out and meet with Councilman Ivy and the rest of the Hillside Committee, as discussed, and out of that we pulled a few recommendations that we were able to massage into this to kind of mitigate that cut slope up the hill. One of those you can see on, trying to read that, is like lots 3, 4, and 5, I think. Those first 3 larger lots there on the east. We pulled the toe of that, the catchment basin out to the west into the lots more to mitigate that. It also helped to preserve that boulder field. There's like a field of fallen boulders down at the base of the hill right there. And we're able to keep those boulders. There was a lot of discussion about that with the Hillside Committee to maintain those in their locations where they're at so that it maintain the aesthetics of that boulder field there. Additionally, we were able to, on lot 8, kind of pull the toe of the, kind of the same idea, but pull the toe of that catchment basin out to the west. Instead of going through lot 8, it kind of makes a break and pull it out to the west to minimize the cut up the hill right there. And then the last thing I can think of that we did was we raised the pads as much as we could, and kind of towards the east end of the pads slope up to the catchment basin to help minimize the cut up the hill as well. So as high as we can get that catchment, the rockfall berm, the higher we can get that, the less cut there's going to be on that hillside. So
How high is that berm?
it's an 8-foot tall berm. So.
Okay.
So implementing those 3 measures, we were able to pull it down dramatically, like you were talking about. So,
Council, any questions or comments for the applicant?
Well, it does create a unique situation where that formation and that hill is noted for rockfalls. Is something that you have to mitigate, and sometimes that gets a little bit in the way of hillside in that you have to take some precautions to mitigate that. But our discussion went well. Would you just share with the council, when you stand at the toe, how far up the hill are you talking? Just so you share the information that I have.
So the cut heights, is that what you're talking about? So we've got areas of 20 right now on the plat that we submitted. There are a couple areas of, let's see here. I was just looking at that before I came because I knew you were going to ask. So right there on lot 1, it's 20 feet is the maximum cut. At the south end of lot 7 is another one of the maximum areas. It's 20 feet as well. And then the south end of lot 8 is 32 feet. And then on lot 28 to the south is 22 feet. And then the south end of lot 29 is 26 feet.
But you can only have 20 feet max.
That's what they recommended. They tried to, see what we can do to get it to 20 feet maximum. And on some of those areas, we can't pull it out any farther. One of the things we were thinking about is if these heights bother you, you know, like if you're not comfortable with these heights, what we can do is add in a rock wall. I think you talked about that earlier, Craig, and that will help to, I did an analysis of that earlier today, and if we add in a rock wall behind the catchment basin, that would help limit it to the 20 feet, but it would also create a situation where you're dropping, you know, if a rock does come down the hill, it would have to drop vertically into that catchment basin. It may prevent the rock catchment basin from working properly, you know what I mean? So additionally, that 32-foot area that I was talking about over on Lot 8, they did talk about, if you remember Councilman Ivy, they're like, that's where that road is going up the hill, and they're like, we don't really care about that spot because it's already cut up and everything.
It's where the pipeline
already.
comes down across the hill. Yeah.
So it's all scarred right there.
Yeah.
I still think he should add a wall just for aesthetic purposes to break up that slope, but I mean, I don't want to get in the way of what the geotech recommends for the stability of the rock, so but they're also recommending 20-foot max, so.
Is the reason that you're cutting into the toe and cutting into the hillside, I mean, these lots are quite large. Is it a setback issue? I mean, is it necessary to cut into the hill? I mean, any way that we can avoid scarring on our hills that's there permanently, you know, I'm all in favor of that. I mean, is it simply the fact that, you know, we can position the homes built on these lots forward and not have to cut back into the hillside or into the toe so much?
It's a great question. You know, there's, that's why we pulled that up on the north end with 3, 4, and 5. We pulled it out quite a bit actually to the west for that purpose, and also to maintain the boulders. But it went from, you know, 20, 25 feet of cut down to like 8 in those areas, and it'll be completely covered by just the rockfall berm that's in that area.
So help me understand
Lots to the
visually how
south,
it's going to
though.
look different than, help us understand visually how it's going to look different in this section based on the cuts on the adjacent property. Because I see scarring that goes up the hill on that one, and my fear, and I understand that you're doing walls and different, but I don't do this every day, but I'm concerned with this is going to be permanent, and so I'm just trying to understand how is this going to look, how are we minimizing the scarring?
Right. So you're talking about between North Rim and Finley Farms, right? So it's actually going to tie in seamlessly between the two projects, assuming Hillside Committee doesn't come back and say they have to drastically change what they're doing. But the intent, according to their design and our design, they kind of tie in and mesh with each other right now.
And that's where the houses align along the toe.
Yeah. Also, in addition, to answer your question from before, why can't we pull the lots out? You know, they're big lots. 3, 4, and 5 are really deep lots, and we have pulled that out quite a bit and completely mitigated it in that area. Further south, they're not as deep a lots, and so I mean, one option is to eliminate the lots, but I don't know if anybody really likes that idea or option.
Who's going to maintain? The reason why they still look like big lots is because the lot goes to the back of the cut.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's like a third of the lot that's the 1-to-1 and the wall. And who maintains that and deals with that?
So the homeowners association will maintain, the rockfall berm and the catchment behind the berm, and then the homeowner will maintain the rest of their lot. So,
well, we'll probably need some kind of easement on the plat, the final plat, dictating that.
You know, I think Mayor asks a good question, makes a good point. And that is, if you really look deeply at the hillside ordinance that the city has in place and has done for years, there's elements of that agreement that go as far as to say that they would like developers to bond before the project so they can actually replace any native plants or rocks to get it back to its original, condition. So considering that and the idea that there is room within the hillside ordinance to allow for the way it's worded, unconformities, to try to make it blend. I don't know that it directly aligns with what the intent of the hillside is, to basically cut the hill to allow lots that could be brought out, or the plat could be adjusted. Now, this is a council, discussion, but as I have become familiar with the hillside ordinance, I feel like that it's very clear. It's maybe something that we could all take some time to read and try to understand a little better. But as I was out there, those were some of the things that I looked at, and then went back and read and realized that there was maybe a better way forward, in our future anyway.
And regarding the planting, if you feel better putting some spray seed on the cut slopes or something like that to reestablish vegetation up there, so it's not, just a cut scar or whatever forever. That's
I think
a possibility as well.
I think if you look at what the integrity of the hillside ordinance, I believe it's more native vegetation, the desert plants, the sagebrush that grows there. And of course, the intent of the hillside is for the benefit of the community and everyone that visits, so that they don't see, a troubling scar. In St. George years ago, there was a cut made to the Black Hill that has really lent a lot of motivation for this type of ordinance. And, at some point, we're going to have to address the hillside ordinance as it's written, because I know in the past there has been, the main look at the hillside ordinance has been whether or not the strata would support it and what the soils were. So I think there's another element that we need to consider, and that is whether or not it's something that should happen. As the member of the Hillside Committee, I have expertise in the soils and strata and that stuff, but I would look to council for any questions that you might have to help, because this is a cut of the hillside. It comes up from the toe.
What's the slope analysis? What's the slope right here?
There's hardly anything over 20%. There is some over 20. I'm sorry, over the over the 40% non-developable. There's like a couple pocket areas, like small areas. I can't remember exactly.
Per the
what that looked
ordinance,
like,
you're
but-
not allowed to grade past the 40%
Right.
at all. So we are touching that here.
No, not on the slope itself. And when I talk about pocket areas, you know how you do a slope analysis? You always get those triangles that are over 40. That's the small areas I'm talking about. So it's not like big areas.
What is the range? Because we don't have it in our packet. It's something for the future, Drew. I'd like to see that in our packet.
That's a good question. It's been a few months since I looked at it. It was when we did the hillside.
I
I sent it to the hillside.
10 to 20, 20 to 30 range
For what area?
for the area that you're diving into? I'm just
That slope area or the
lot 8
the
through
lots?
3 through 8.
The lots are all in the 0 to 20.
Okay. So what's not then? Is there anything between 20 and 30?
It crosses into that hillside map on the thing, and that's why we had to go to the hillside committee.
Well, I understand that. My question though, is there any existing slopes that are over 30%?
I can't remember for sure, but I don't, as far as the buildable areas of the lots, no, there wasn't anything in there. In the cut slopes and in the berms, potentially, I just can't remember for sure. Like I said, it was a couple months ago, so.
Were you on site with the Hillside Committee?
Mhm.
So I'm looking through the motion that was made. It was actually a 3-to-1 vote there, so there was a dissenting vote. Do you know what the reason for dissent was on that?
Councilman Ivy, do you remember who was the dissenting vote on that? I can't even remember. And I don't remember why he was.
And I'm not
dissenting.
so concerned as who, but maybe more with why, because
Right.
typically with my experience with Hillside, they're looking at, can we do this? Not necessarily should we do this, but I do appreciate some of their recommendations. Obviously in the motion, item 3 says from an aesthetic standpoint, lots 2 through 9 and 27 through 29, the applicant should look at a combination of buildable versus non-buildable area to preserve natural features such as large boulders, rock clusters, etc. Cut exposure should be near 20 foot or less, but it sounds like in some areas you're saying it might be a little more than that.
Yeah, there's a couple areas that are more. Which, yeah, of course, you as a city council have the authorization and the right to still approve it, right? But if you're not comfortable with it, if you want to stick to the hillside committee, of course, we can put those retaining walls in, like I said, so.
Say that again.
In those areas, we can add in a retaining wall.
In that you're talking areas that are higher than 20 feet?
Yes, yep. So right behind the catchment berm, there's that area where the rocks will fall and catch. If we put in a retaining wall there, it will help to reduce the cut on the backside there.
As I read it, it sounds like that's part of the motion that cut exposure should be near 20 foot or less. So it looks like that's probably already part of the hillside recommendation, unless somebody else understands that differently.
That's what it was.
Well, that's what I understood when I read them.
And I've probably been as clear as I should be, just that minimizing scarring, preserving, native natural vegetation is critical to me. At this point, I'll turn this back to the council for any, further comment, further discussion, further type of motion. I mean, this is a nice subdivision. There's just, the issue is along this hillside here.
So help me understand again. So the motion that was included cut exposure should be near 20 foot or less. Tell me again, just so the council's clear, what is the cut that you're proposing in your project? What would be the maximum
The
cut?
maximum is 32 feet right there, right now.
And that's
over by
more
that
on the
road.
southern end,
The south end of lot 8.
which right behind that would be close to the water line that comes down
Right.
over the hill.
Exactly.
Is there a way to like rip wrap some of those taller cuts so that they at least, so it's just not a bare scar, so that you just dress it up with some rip wrap or something like that?
Yeah.
Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, we can do that. We talked about that before, and we absolutely can. One of the concerns before is for erosion down those slopes, the faces or whatever. And the geotech engineer believes that a lot of this area that we're cutting into is going to be rock, bedrock. And so the one-to-one slope won't be a concern as far as erosion, but that's one of the things we were going to do is if it is not bedrock, then we're going to face it with some rock so that it's not doesn't erode. But if you think we would need it for dressing it up, we can do that as well.
So Rick, work with me here. How are you going to get that rock to hold on the one-to-one? What size of rock are you going to use? Because if you use landscape rock, there's no way it's going to hold. It's not gonna. It barely holds on a 2-to-1, let alone a 1-to-1.
Right. It would need to be more like that stuff down along Southern Parkway we talked about. That kind of locks together and it fits in
So it's
like
more
a
of a
puzzle
wall
kind of
look
thing.
where you piece together the larger diameter rocks to face it.
Laid back wall kind of thing. Just doesn't have the grid behind it and everything.
So council, at this point, there are obviously the options are approve, deny, table. If there's approval, I would hope that in that motion, there would be some clarity on how to address the hillside. If you feel like that clarity can't be made, and if it would take a couple weeks to get some clarity on that, I'm okay with that too. I think we can come to a reasonable solution on the hillside, whether you feel like there can be some conditions made now, or if you feel like that could take some back and forth over the next 2 weeks and define those, I would be happy to hear a motion for either of those.
So Rick, do you think you could get a limit it to 25 feet and get a less than an 8-foot wall in there?
Yeah. I had, like I said, I did an analysis earlier today, putting walls in there, and they were all under the 20 feet when I put the wall in.
So if you keep it at a 1-to-1, it'd have to. I'll just finish my thought. I was trying to see if you laid it at a 1-to-1, if you could just lay it steeper, but then you're into a wall at a 1/2 to 1, so it's a wall anyways. So kind of my motion is that I'll make a motion and see where it goes at least, and you can tell me. I'll make a motion, we approve the preliminary plat at North Rim Farms located approximately 300 east and 4800 south with the findings and conditions provided by staff, with the additional conditions that maximum height be 25 feet with the top 5 feet being a wall. Anything above, does that make sense? Anything above 20 feet will have to have a wall or mitigation. I don't know, what's your thoughts on that?
My thought is, I was, from an aesthetic standpoint, they talked about lots 2 through 9 and 27 through 29. We talked about the applicant looks at a combination of buildable area versus non-buildable area. So, when you talk about walls and stuff, before we do anything, I think that that's the first thing. And I don't mean to distract from your motion. It's just that, have we done everything to try to mitigate before we do this, to try to keep it? I'm probably digressing the conversation, but I
think you did on 3 through 6 they have, right?
Yeah.
Like they've kept under the 20 feet, they've done that. So maybe lot 7 and 8, you got to keep under 20 feet and figure out how to do it. Got to slide walls, push your wide. I mean, I'll amend my motion to be a max 20 feet per the Hillside Board recommendations.
With use of retaining walls as needed or something like that, right?
Well, you can figure that out between, as long as your max is 20 feet. So that's what I'd suggest, but, so that's my motion.
All right, we have a motion on the table by Councilman Coates. Any further discussion or a second?
Can I just clarify?
Yes, Rick.
This is a 20 foot of the cut slope, right? Not 20 feet, including retaining walls.
No, it's 20 feet from your lot elevation.
Right, but of the cut slope, not include, like, you know what I mean? Like 20 feet, you got a 10-foot retaining wall. And
No,
then you
I'm
got
saying
10
20
foot of
feet
cut slope
max. That's
total.
Yeah, 20-foot max cut, or you got to slide your wall out so you have less of a cut. And if you put in a wall, then it's going to cut it back. So you might have to build that wall 4 feet up the hill or 10 feet up the hill and go up so that you can get rid of the cut slope.
Gotcha. Thank you.
That's my 20-foot max from the lot elevation.
Okay, thank you.
And Drew, working with the applicant and Public Works as they build out, is there any need to address, buildable area and not disturbing natural vegetation, or is that already addressed in the preliminary plat drawings?
Well, I think especially if I'm looking at lot 8, with that coming in, they're gonna have to be building their buildable area on that west side anyway, so I don't think we'll have, any issue there. So they'll have to meet all their setbacks to property lines, street frontage, side. Now, they may not have much of a backyard on lot number 8, but there's properties that have that happen no matter what, either it's going up or going down. I can take you to 3 subdivisions right now, people's backyards actually, as you go 3 foot out of the house out the back, it's either a drop straight down or it's a climb straight up. So, but I think they have enough buildable area. Lot 8's going to be a challenged one, there's no doubt about that. So, but other than that, lot
Thank you.
9 is fine with where it's at, so.
All right, we have a motion by Coates.
Mayor, I can second that motion. I think that's a good way forward under the circumstances.
And we have a second by Ivy. This is not a roll call vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Your preliminary plat is approved, and please be gentle with the hillside. Moving on. Item 7 is public hearings. We're after 5 p.m., so we'll move forward with the public hearings portion of our meeting. As I stated earlier on ordinances, it will be a roll call vote. And I do want to note that while public comments are accepted until 5 p.m. the day before the meeting electronically on washingtoncity.org/meetings, No public comments were received electronically on any of the public hearing items that are on the agenda tonight. For those who are in the audience who would like to make a comment on the items, please state your name when you come to the mic. And to the council, let's remember to use the public comment portion of the meeting to listen to the public, make a note or make a mental note of any questions or comments you have. I will close the public hearing. We won't need a motion on that. I'll personally close the public hearing. Then I will bring it back to you and to staff and the applicant as necessary. Okay, let's move forward. Item 7A is a public hearing and consideration to approve height waiver request HW-22-01 for a 4-story commercial hotel located off of Green Spring Drive, just south of the existing Spring Hill Suites. Community Development Director Drew Ellerman.
Thank you, Mayor. Misplaced my written one, so I had to hurry and get this up on my pad. This is a request for a height waiver. The maximum height of buildings allowed within structures in the service commercial C2 zone properties. Location is just off of Green Springs. It's due south of the existing Spring Hill Suites Hotel, so I hope you know where we're talking about here, which is about approximately 100 north. So the maximum allowable height as per the zoning regulations is 45 feet for commercial buildings. The applicant is seeking approval to extend the height of their proposed new hotel building to 60 feet at its highest point. Here is the elevation of the building. They received the same approval for the Spring Hill Suites right next door. It'll pretty much be a continuation of hotel next to hotel with the pools in between. Same owners of this, the existing one and this proposed one. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have about this proposed height waiver.
Great. Does the council have any questions for our Community Development Director before I open the public hearing?
I would just ask Drew, where the other motel is at 60 feet, we've approved that. Is there anything that you would like to add to why this would be a concern to you where the other one's approved?
No, I have no concern with this, being the nature of where it is and already existing, height. And then the hotel that was built over by the Terribles is, I think, not much shorter than this. So I don't have any concerns with this at all. I'd recommend, approval on it, just from my professional opinion as your Community Development Director. I don't see any issues with this.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Drew? Okay, this is a public hearing. At this time, I'll open the public hearing and invite anyone who would like to speak to this item to come forward. Seeing no one come forward, I will close the public hearing. Would the applicant like to make any comments before I look to the council for further discussion and or a motion? If you'll just remember to state your name.
Derek Wiggins, Reflect Architecture, the architect. I'm just here if you guys have any questions, so appreciate your guys' time.
Jared.
Yeah.
It's a good looking hotel.
No, thank you. We're excited because we feel like it'll be a great amenity, and as Drew mentioned, it's really an extension of the other hotel. So
stay there for a sec. Any questions for the architect?
Yeah, Derek, just one. Is there any mechanical plan for the roof, or is it just all ceiling height?
There will be a couple of mechanical units like on the other hotel, but we do have parapets that will hide all of those or screen all those mechanical units.
And that includes the total height of 60 feet?
Correct, yep.
Great, thank you. So I'll appreciate that. I'll close the public hearing. And at this point, I'll turn to the council for further discussion or a motion.
Mayor, I have no problem in making a motion to approve a height waiver request for HW-22-01 for a 4-story commercial hotel located off of Green Springs.
Second. I have a motion by Ivy. I have a second by Coates. We'll do a roll call vote on this. Henderson?
Aye.
Ivy?
Aye.
Coates?
Aye.
Casperson?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 7B is public hearing and consideration to approve an ordinance for General Plan Amendment G-21-04 to change from open space, neighborhood commercial, medium density, and medium high density to industrial located northeast of the Western Rock Pit on Landfill Road. Community Development Director, Drew Ellerman.
Thank you, Mayor. As stated, applicants seeking to amend the general plan use map. The requested, as stated earlier, is an area that covers 370.35 acres. The current land use designations are open space, neighborhood commercial, medium density residential, and medium high density residential. The applicant is wishing to have this approval to change this to open space, and the open space is the areas that they don't want to build on. That's the light shaded areas with just the single hash marks and dotted. That will remain in open space. And then the darker blue crossed hash areas, they want to have it turned to industrial designation. The surrounding general plan land use designations to this proposal are open space and medium density to the north, medium density residential and open space to the east, medium high density residential and neighborhood commercial to the south, and industrial, open space, and medium high density residential to the west. Staff's reviewed the requested change, has no problem with the proposal at this particular area. Now, the city is in need of more industrial properties at this time. In this particular area, which is not very developed and more challenging for residential or commercial, is probably a great location for such uses. These are close to the landfill and roadway systems for great access to Highway 9 and Interstate 15. The Planning Commission reviewed the request at their December 15th, 2021 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of G-21-04 to amend the general plan land use map from the open space, the neighborhood commercial, the medium density residential, and medium high density residential designations to the proposed open space and industrial designations as outlined and shown in your exhibit. And this motion was on to you, the City Council. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that the council might have on this particular item.
Thank you for your report. Drew, does any member of the council have questions for Drew?
Hey, Drew, with your cursor, could you kind of point out the gravel pit on that vicinity map, just so we have a little bit of an idea?
You are asking for a challenge here. I'm
Just
not-
if
loves
you
to
ha-
draw.
Yeah,
It's-
just a general guess.
If it's anywhere, it might be around in this
Okay.
area. I'm thinking, Adam, you're here. Am I right on that? I'm pretty sure it's down where my cursor's floating right now. Is that correct or not? Or is it farther south?
Adam Allen again, American Land Consulting. It is pretty much in that whole, it abuts us on that whole south end right there. They own all that
Okay.
property, so. And then there's another pit kind of to the west. There's like a white spot up in there where they
Yeah.
kind of cut down the top of the hill up there above us.
Try to bring that up for you if it helps, but
So Adam, while you're there, any of these areas touch the hillside zone?
That's why we have cut everything out, hoping to mitigate hillside. Obviously, we'll have to, I think it falls, there's still some areas that fall within the area of hillside, but we'll have to go through that process. But anything that's over, I think 30%, we just took out. And then there's some other areas that don't make sense at all, whether they were or not. So through that analysis, we're trying to keep this looking nice.
Further questions for staff or the applicant?
I just have maybe a comment or question for Drew. Can you give the audience and the citizens at home that may be listening some ideas of what industrial this would look like as an industrial zone out there? What businesses would come in, and then just, if you would just talk about there's a neighborhood commercial zone adjacent to it. We probably wouldn't want industrial and then have a neighborhood commercial that is already zoned to the south. So if you'd just talk to those two things, please.
let me just kind of bring this. I don't know if this helps or hurts. because it's hard to find the property lines this far out, but yet it gives you an idea. And so um, these are the particular different zoning designations, I mean, general plan designations that we have out there, green being the open space. And then the other colors are the kind of residential. The reddish is the neighborhood commercial. The orange is medium high, and then this is medium. Again, trying to imagine residential neighborhoods out there is difficult for me even on that. Now, the purple areas already are pretty harshly, like one of them up there is you have that other landfill that's not the county one. It's more of a private landfill. It's probably going to be one of your harshest uses out there, but they came into us with that kind of approval from the county and through annexations. The Hughes already had that approved through the county and did all their state requirements, so we ended up with that one. Right now, it seems to me like the hot thing in industrial is like what you saw with the White Sage. The Dennett development is doing a lot of those contractor storage yards or facilities. I would almost imagine, because that's the hot product, why wouldn't you keep building the same thing? But the zoning would come in and they could either ask for I-1 or I-2. Now, I-2, you might want to be a little more hesitant about because that is your harsher, maybe smokestacks, a little more smells, a little more vibrant. I mean, it's going to be taking raw products, making them to a usable product, where your I-1s are going to be you're taking already established products and creating something else. So hopefully that kind of helps, but it depends on, at this point, it's hard to tell because we're not sure if they're going to ask for I-1 or I-2 at any one of those locations. So we'll that'll be the next step. That's the process, and the beauty about this is it's a step-by-step way to get there. And so if this does get passed by the council, the next one will be the important, a little bit more decisive whether I'm going I-1 or I-2. So hopefully that helped you, council member, and
It
everybody.
did, just as long as we don't have somebody come in and want neighborhood commercial next to an I-2 zone.
Yeah, and this one, it may be because I'm not sure how close that one is, but let me just scroll. Oops, should have
How
grabbed
close is it to the landfill?
the landfill. Let me just take these colors out of here real quick, and I'm going to back out, and you'll see. Did I back out too far? Probably. You can see the landfill here, and it's on the other side of that main ridge. The ridge is right. If you can't tell, that's, if you've been, everybody knows where the landfill is, and there's that peak that runs there. That's what that peak is right there. And most of the stuff that we're proposing here is in this area, on this southeast side of that peak. And then the one they're leaving out of it is, of course, this peak right here is that open space that we said we were trying to take most of that out. And
where's the other area?
well, other area,
It just looked like there's the ridge, and then you're talking about the southeast side. Is there more area that's not on the southeast side, or is it all along the southeast side of that mesa?
well, that's where it gets kind of difficult trying to blend these two. Most of that ridge, that main one, and Adam, stop me if you know better, but most of that main ridge, and then the landfill's over where my even more. I can't. If I were to say, the landfill is, if I'm going up here by my tab, so if that helps you, council member, as it's up over that. So this is the main ridge right here where these stepping, things are taking place. If you see those those property lines right there that look like stairs that are built real bad, that's kind of where that main ridge goes at that angle. And then that smaller ridge is what we were talking about. We're trying to take out of this, going back. Is that correct, Adam? I hope that.
Yeah, we actually we come over that ridge, and that top corner there actually touches the landfill, that top area.
Okay.
So It does come over and touch the landfill.
Oh, this is part of your property you're talking about right here, or not? Or is that where those
There's
bad
like a
steps-
space, yeah, there's like a space in between, and then that north piece comes over.
I'm trying to zoom in and get some of those property lines so you can show that.
So, and the
we
majority of
go.
what we're looking at is on the other side of that. When we brought in the whole Sunrise Valley development, which is the Red Waters development, and then the industrial to the north, the discussions were had at that time with what are we gonna do with this whole area, because the applicant has owned this property for a while now. And that's always been the discussion, and what we've planned for as far as utilities, sewer and water and stuff's been put in, assuming that we were gonna continue industrial up through that area, based on the initial discussions that we had. So, at our time, it was presented that was probably a good spot for industrial out there.
Great. And just for the record, Adam Allen is the applicant, representing the applicant here.
Yeah, sorry.
370 acres. Can you put that in perspective as compared to Red Waters Industrial, just in terms of size?
So I think the Red Waters Industrial is 100 acres. The residential down there is 205 acres. And so actually, if Drew zooms out a little bit, that kind of, you can see our property outlines right there. I apologize. I have an exhibit with a map on it or a photo behind it.
So
I made it in.
everything in yellow on that map is the city boundary.
Yep.
So what they're asking for is the remainder of what's in the city, except a small little piece to the north.
Yeah, there's like a piece in between us that we don't have
left.
right there. Yeah.
Although, yeah, this piece they're not messing with right here.
That piece right there is not.
So what's
no.
that zoning on that one? Or what's the general plan on that parcel?
That one, let me go back and we'll.
No, those are industrial in the county. That goes up to it already, right, Drew?
Now, what's that? Sorry,
So there's industrial that already is. That is on the border.
this piece
for
right
the
here.
county.
Yeah, this right here is in the city and it's industrial. The county is where the landfill actually is, but we can designate, we can't zone it, but we can general plan areas outside our city limits within our boundary. Our annexation policy plan allows us to general plan items. So this piece is in right here where my arrow's floating, and that's industrial. But the general plan, Councilman, right here, are you talking about the piece they left out?
Yeah.
It is basically medium high density and open space in that blank area in between the two.
Who owns that property?
I think you own that, don't you? Or part of it? You don't? Okay.
No, I don't believe so. We've tried to take the rest of what we had and start moving forward with that plan. And part of it came from the economic director. I can't remember her name now. She
Rusty.
and approached the owners about moving forward with this industrial.
And do you feel like, what portion of the 370 acres do you feel like is buildable? You feel like is it realistic to think that the entirety of that acreage is buildable there for industrial?
It's really hard to say. I believe it's 370, but is that our total acreage that we're asking for to be industrial?
No, that's the whole application. So, but
think
the
there's like
little
another-
bit of open space,
I think there's like 120 acres of open space or 100 acres of open space we took out of there. So there's, if you zoom in, right, I don't know if you can zoom in right there, Drew.
onto this one.
Yeah, into each one of those, we have a little thing that says how big
Well,
they
I can.
are.
You have it broken up here, so I can. Oh, is that where? So is the acreage on your little legend or not? Nope. It's not.
No. So it looks like there's 166 acres of industrial and
Oh,
40
those guys
there,
have it,
right? So there's
yeah.
267 down there, and there's 300 about 70 acres right there. We're saying is not usable.
Yeah, I'm just reading through the report. It says the requested area covers approximately 370.35 acres. The current land use designations are open space, neighborhood commercial, medium density, and medium high density. The applicant is seeking approval to have the land use designations changed to open space and industrial. So what's the breakdown, I guess, of the entirety? It sounds like the request is to move from these other designations to open space and industrial along the entirety. So that's, I guess, to clarify, my question is how much are you wanting to leave open space and how much are you wanting to leave industrial? Are you wanting to change to industrial?
So, I apologize, I don't have that right in front of me, but so we've got, I think it's 379 acres of industrial, and there's almost 500 acres left, because right there, we're asking for 100 acres and 37 and 7. And the overall is 205.
Up here, yeah, that's what, yeah, I think that's what you're saying is that it's in the smaller number is the ones
That parcel's BLM.
109 basically.
I'm sorry, I'm still just
There.
trying to get clarity on in open space versus industrial on the general plan land use amendment that's
So
before us.
I think the way it's pointing, coming out, I think it's 370 acres of usable, and then the open space is beyond that.
Is the remainder?
Is more, yeah, there's more acreage. So I think the way this is that it's based on the 370 of usable, of industrial designated area. That's what it sounds like.
Is it important to, is the total area isn't defined on this? Is it defined on the map? Is it, or should it have been part of the request?
As far as,
It's in part of the legal description, Drew, just not in your report?
Legal description shows 214 acres for portion A and portion B. I don't know if that includes open. It looks like it.
it does not, I did not include the legal description of the open space.
Well, that's just, and then we got to add portion C and D and E.
So, council, from my perspective, I have no problem with industrial out there. I think this is a great area for industrial. I guess my point is, and I'll leave it to you for discussion after we open and close the public hearing. I think we ought to have some clarity on the acreage and the amounts of open space and industrial, and I don't know if that can be determined here, or if that can be determined in future, or if you're comfortable giving kind of a blanket, a general plan is just general, so that we don't need to be as tight as we would necessarily be on a zoning or on a plat. But actually at this point, Alan, I appreciate your comments. I'm gonna excuse you for just a minute to sit down, and we'll open this up now for public comment. Anyone who has a public comment on this particular item. And just as a reminder, Commissioner Musso, to state your name.
I'm Brian Musso. I'm on the Planning Commission. I wasn't here the night that they approved this. The one question I would have, though, is where is the access coming from? I understand it's going to be coming off of the road where the dump is, but now is that other road that's going to be coming off of Long Valley Junction going to connect into this on the far east side, Drew?
Right. So what we'll do at this point, appreciate your comments, and we're gonna have we'll make a note of those, and then after the public hearing, we'll either council or staff will address those. So staff, if you could make a note of that. I know that was part of the conversation and the discussion when it was at Plan Commission. What other questions, comments do you have, Commissioner?
That would be the biggest question I'd have.
Future
That,
access.
and then the access off a country lane would not be, there's got to be extra access other than just off of the country lane from the south side. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other public comment on this particular item? I know your name, but I'll let you say it, Mike.
Mike Stewart. I'm actually here for something else, and also this popped up, and I'm sitting there texting my family, but we have 4 acres, just one parcel over from that to the east, which I'm assuming is a county.
I look at Councilman Coates. He's a land expert here. He's given the nod. But
Yeah,
excuse me, we're not going to interact with you, so we'll make a note of that.
No, anyways, I think this is a good fit for it because we've wondered. We didn't know it was coming up that soon to us, so I guess this caught me off guard, but we support that because that's something we eventually, that gives us access to our property over there. We support it, so.
Perfect. Duly noted. Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Any other public comments on this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and I will now look to to the council for any questions you may have for staff or the applicant, and I'll make sure I'll give the applicant a chance to speak too before we vote.
Drew, could I have you bring up the overlay, the hillside overlay zone as it applies to this area, and just try to get an idea of the scope? Where it's such a large area, it may be hard to try to identify it. Do you see any of this development that would fall within the hillside zone?
Oh, yeah, a lot of it will. Again, they're going to take out the harshest percentages and then work through the hillside. If I understood what Adam was telling you, is that those peaks, that's the open space portions. The rest of it, they'll go through hillside and work through those as they come in for plating, et cetera. So.
Staff, do you want to address the access question in particular Countryway, or would someone on the council like to take a stab at that?
Drew, is there not planned for at a future time, a bridge that would cross the river there and access up into the landfill? I heard something about that at one time. I don't know where it.
This yellow line is that road. You can see here's the interchange where my arrow is down here on the corner. If you guys see where my little cursor. So then the plan is to come off of Highway 7, then head due north, just like where that intersection, the T intersection is now. Head right over. There's talk about a new bridge being built across the river right here. And that's through the MPO, Hurricane, the county. You know, I don't know if we're part of that or not. I don't know if I've ever heard our name in it, but a new bridge is proposed to go on this yellow line. And this is what the access, getting back to the question that was asked in the public hearing, is this yellow line and that blue line are the two main roads that will bring access all the way. Now, this yellow line is going to go all the way into the back of the county complex. It'll end up coming into that industrial area, right into the fairgrounds, to the jail, et cetera. This is going to be an access. That's why the county knows they're kind of partly behind this. And that, just to add another transportation route, that yellow line is that route.
Does that run through the landfill to get to
no, you can see the landfill's up here on its own.
Okay.
Actually, the landfill's right there. Yeah, where my arrow is. So you can see it's on the back side of that ridge. But you still will be able to access it through these other roads. This blue line comes and then goes around. That's the when you enter into the landfill. You get down to the T intersection at the landfill, and then you'll make the right, then get on this road, which is part of one of those industrial zones we've already approved, subdivisions. That'll be that road. And then it'll tie into this new proposed road, and that'll access their portion in both places here, as you see that yellow line go through. This is the city boundaries. It's kind of, almost a orange. The lighter yellow is Hurricane city limits, right? As of right now, the area with no color in it other than the hillside is the county. So that's kind of.
That's all within our annexation boundaries, the remainder, or no? Do you not know?
I'll tell you right here in a second. It's split. Hurricane's the green, we're the red.
Makes sense. But we're not supposed to take the landfill, are we? That'll always stay county, right?
We don't have to I would strongly advise as your staff, never take the landfill. Don't let it get annexed in, but unfortunately it's in our annexation plan. Doesn't mean we have to.
I think the landfill's already in Hurricane is what I've heard, so just start spreading that rumor.
We'll go with that. Well said, manager.
Just some clarification. I did the math on the parcels and it came up to 370.44 acres based on the total acres on the bottom of each legal description, and that does not include the open space.
That's what I did. It came to 370. Yeah. So it is the usable, not the open space.
But the staff report is different. So the staff report has 370.35. So.
And what's on your thing doing it?
70.44. So it's a difference.
So we're just less than a square foot. I mean,
Yeah, I'm just letting you know.
okay.
But the report.
I'm okay with, that's a
This
plus
is
or minus of
acres.
less than, acre, yeah,
acres.
so it's a third of or
Yeah.
1/4 of
I'm
an
just
acre over.
clarifying for the record.
Please give
that
me
the
a
legal
little bit of-
description say
yeah.
it's 370.44, and that, and then I think we asked, I asked who owns the property on that jogged piece without the remaining, and it looks like it's the BLM.
Up in this area here.
That makes sense, and that makes sense why the 370 is in the report, because you're not including the open space. So it's 370 acres industrial. I'm going to have one more question for you. Did I close the public hearing? Yes. Okay, public hearing has been closed. In your staff report, oftentimes you'll put staff recommends approval. In this report, you put has no problem. Is there a reason that you did not put recommend?
Probably just because I don't have any reason. No, I should have put that.
Okay.
So,
And then
Yeah.
there's no reason that you can think of that industrial doesn't make sense to a general plan, which is just that, it's general. But I see Councilman Henderson having some comments. Go ahead, Councilman.
I was going to say that, we've talked a lot about what's good for the community, and I think this particular area out here, we're in sore need of industrial properties in Washington and in the St. George area. I think this is a perfect location for it, and so I think it's a good thing for the city, good thing for the economy in general in this area. So
I agree with that too. Based on the area, what's there already, the landfill, and it makes sense to me to change it to that, to industrial.
Any final comments by the applicant?
Yes, I'd just like to clarify, I've done the math. So there's, in the northern parcel, there's 205 acres total, 155 of industrial, 49 of open space. And in the southern parcel, there's 214 acres of industrial and 53 acres of open space. And as far as the roadway, I know the roadway got brought up and the access. This is going to take a little bit to develop out, and we've been in discussions. Arthur over at Hurricane is spearheading that roadway to get access through. Right, it's in dire need of a second access through that industrial area, and I know that they've brought it forth for COG funding, and so, but he hasn't given me the exact timeline, and so usually that's within 5 years ish is when that happens if they've brought it forth and have approved it for COG funding.
Perfect. Thank you. I think my questions have been answered. If there are no other questions or concerns, I'll call for a motion.
Mayor, I motion that we approve an ordinance for general plan amendment G-21-04 to change from open space, neighborhood commercial, medium density and medium high density to industrial located northeast of the Western Rock Pit on Landfill Road.
Great. I have a motion by Henderson.
Second by Coates.
I have a second by Coates. This is a roll call vote as it's an ordinance. Let's start with Casperson.
Aye.
Ivy.
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Moving along to item 7C, which is a public hearing and consideration to approve an ordinance for general plan amendment G-21-05 to change from community commercial to planned unit development residential and commercial located approximately 2,000 north along I-15. Community Development Director Drew Ellerman.
Thank you, Mayor. As stated, applicant is seeking to amend the general plan land use map. The requested area covers approximately 100 acres. The land use designation right now is the community commercial. Applicant, as stated, is wishing to turn it to the planned unit development residential and commercial designation in the general plan. The surrounding general plan use designations are open space to the north, which is basically the reserve, and north and east, open space and medium density residential to the south, and open space and regional commercial to the west. Staff's reviewed the requested change and finds no problem with this request from the community commercial to the planned unit development residential and commercial. Planning Commission reviewed the request at their December 15th, 2021 meeting, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of G-21-05 to amend the general plan from the community commercial to the proposed planned unit development, which would include residential and commercial, as outlined in your exhibits, and also this was moved on to you, the city council, with that recommendation of approval. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have on this particular piece. It's been in discussions as to the property to the west, which is part of the Coral Canyon, up there with that particular subdivision needing to send this road down through this area. So
Thank you, Drew. Council, any questions for Drew?
Drew, will you talk again about why you have decided, I know in the planning commission, you were concerned about not wanting to take away the commercial, but what was your reasoning for changing it so there's a little bit of a mix of both? Can you address that again?
Yeah, because my concern is, as I've worked with a lot of people who've looked at this piece since it came available, forever we never thought that the family that owned it would ever put it on the market. But about a year and a half ago, it became available with the community commercial. I've always, as the community development director, I try to protect what commercial we have. But once you give it up, it's so hard to go back and get it. Any council members that have some history here know that when you go into a meeting going from residence or anything else trying to get some commercial, it gets ugly is the best way to say it. So I don't like to give it up so we don't have to go backwards to go get it. They have, which I don't make part of these meetings because we're not supposed to, I have seen kind of a tentative layout of what they want to do that kind of helped, take a lot of my concern out of that, which you would see at the future date. Going PUD, I feel much more comfortable. Some of them try to go to high density, say, and that's when I would probably have more of a front against it. But since it is PUD, we can let them come back. You have a lot more say in it as a council, so that helps me as well with that exchange of residential versus, the commercial that we need. So with that, I hope that kind of answers that. We'll wait at their zone change time if you approve this, and then you have a lot more say of how much that ratio you really want to see or not see at that point. This just gives them an opportunity to know that you're going to entertain a PUD. And I'm okay with mixed because our PUD has a mixed proportion to it. So that's why it takes a lot out of me. Instead of them trying to go to multifamily or something like that, I would put up a real big front of, no, thank you, as your staff to you. But this one will come to you in a mixed use development. And that's okay because that's what we want our PUD commercials to be, is kind of mixed use. So.
Well said. Great question. Any further questions for staff or the applicant before I open the public hearing?
I got a question for staff. I'm just curious why we have, not staff, sorry, the applicant. I'm just looking at this and, we have low density. I know it's a PD to the southeast in Coral Canyon, but we're connected to it. I'm assuming it would be similar product type, and maybe I'm just surprised we just kind of blanketly calling it all planned unit commercial. We have our PD commercial and our PD residential. Why don't we identify where those areas are per the exhibit?
Well, I'll just take that one because, to be honest with you, in our general plan, we don't specify residential or commercial. It's not a designation either. We just call it PUD. Okay. So that it's just like our industrial. We don't say it's going to be, we're going to let you, the zoning will come and dictate how. And so I've already told them, I said, you probably up here, you want to have the same product next to the Coral Canyon development. Don't try to come in with anything different. And so that'll come during that PUD zone time. They're already aware of that they'll match. Okay.
Sounds good.
Match that. Does that help you?
Great question. And we're still at a high level at the general plan level. So the applicant wouldn't necessarily need to discuss that yet. Applicant, you heard the councilman's question. Would you like to answer that or maybe address anything after the public hearing? And then if you'd just state your name for the record, Kevin.
Kevin Pritchett. I'm Elevate Development. And yes, I deserve a trophy and a gold star for getting this together. Nobody else was able to do it with the Sullivans, and we've done it. But up on top, for sure, Co-West has got the development coming there to the edge. We're planning on extending the same thing as what Co-West has done, Coral on top of the mesa there. Like Drew said, on the bottom part, the people before us, somewhat looking at this before, always wanted residential. Drew and you guys, Washington needs the commercial and the retail, and we've got that on I-15. We're trying to decide to mitigate right now FEMA with the wash, because old Grandpa Sullivan made a mess of where the wash goes.
He liked his dozer, didn't he?
Yeah, he liked the dozer, and he moved a lot of stuff where it shouldn't be. So once we get that mitigated all the way, but for sure we got commercial along the side, and we're going to do a big part of commercial. We already have, which we're already talking with some big major box people, and people are interested in coming in. So we've already had that discussion.
So Kevin, is it safe to say if the general plan amendment is approved this evening, that at a future date you'll come forward with
for sure.
with a more
Yeah, we're
detailed
excited.
plan at the zoning phase with what you'd like to do on a commercial and residential, which frankly I appreciate, because that allows the city to partner with the developer. So I think that's a good approach.
Oh, Drew's been good, and the people there. Lester will try to figure this FEMA stuff out, because he made a mess with the bulldozer. So,
well, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Okay, at this time I'll open the public hearing for anyone who would like to speak to this item. All right, seeing no one coming forward, I'll close the public hearing and turn and look back to council for any further questions, discussion, and/or a motion.
Mayor, I don't have any questions, staff or council. I make a motion to approve an ordinance for General Plan Amendment G-21-05 to change from community commercial to planned unit development located approximately 2,000 north along I-15.
I have a motion by Ivy.
I'll second it.
And I have a second by Casperson, and we'll do a roll call vote. Coates?
Aye.
Henderson?
Aye.
Ivy?
Aye.
Casperson?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Moving along. Item 7D is public hearing and consideration to approve an ordinance for General Plan Amendment G-21-06 to change from medium density to planned unit development, residential and commercial, located approximately 600 South, 100 East. Community Development Director Drew Ellerman.
Thank you, Mayor. Stated this applicant is also seeking to amend the general plan land use map. The requested area covers 5.75 acres, and as stated, the current designation is open space and medium density residential. The open space basically is over the creek area. That you'd probably want to leave that way anyway, because it does carry floodplain, et cetera. So the applicant seeking to have that land use designation changed to the planned unit development for the possibility to develop the area in a future residential commercial project. Surrounding general plan land use designations are medium density residential to the north, medium density residential and open space to the south and west, and then the medium density residential to the east. Staff's reviewed the requested change and finds no problem with the request from the open space and medium density residential to the proposed planned unit development. The Planning Commission reviewed the request at their December 5th, 2021 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of G-21-06 for the application to change from, again, the medium density residential and open space to that PUD as outlined above and in your exhibits. And this was on to you, the City Council, for this particular zone change or general plan amendment. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have on this proposed.
Council, questions for staff and/or the applicant?
So my question for staff is, we have a checklist for these general plan maps, correct?
We do for zoning, but not so much is there.
Well, I just found it pretty hard to find this place for a minute, just because they don't have street names. I mean, the map's pretty bare. There's nothing on it. I just think it needs a little more work before it gets to us, because it makes it. I had to go down to their vicinity map, which is so small, to get my bearings, and just think we need to make sure that these applications have proper notification so we can know where we're talking.
Duly noted, Councilman. Can you pass that along to the applicant's engineer? I actually noticed that too, that even the streets weren't identified. That would be helpful to have just a little more
Yeah,
identification.
if they would have at least, had Foothill Drive, it would have cleaned up everything for you, because that's the road that you see in your,
Good point, Councilman. Any other questions for staff, questions or comments for the applicant? Would the applicant like to speak now or wait till after the public hearing? Great, thank you. Okay, at this time, I'll open the public hearing and invite anyone who'd like to speak to this item to come forward. And Scott, if you'll state your name for the record.
Scott Sandberg, I represent White Hills LC. We own the property to the west side, and the reason you couldn't find it is because it's such a rural area. And this is a high density in the middle of a rural area. We're very much opposed to something of that nature. Also, we're concerned about the access to it. We're wondering what this will do with Main Street, what demands will come from that, and if you're going to make the Main Street access come down through and through his property, or you're going to let him qualify his property to every density thing he can and then try to push that onto us. That's our concerns, is that we're worried about a density development in a very rural area, and also what's going to happen with Main Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandberg. I've made a note of those. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and look to council, staff, and/or the applicant to address Mr. Sandberg's concern with the density and with access, and particularly access from Main Street. It looks like the applicant's coming forward. I'd like to start with that. If you'll just state your name for the record.
Good afternoon or good evening. Louis Reese is my name. I'm here on behalf of Mill Creek. As Drew is putting down over there, if you look at there's on the right going from west to east off of Foothill Drive, the city is proposing to put in a road that actually will service Mr. Sandberg's property. I don't know what his objection is. About 300 feet west of there, his property is high density with the city of St. George. There's already a hospital approved. There's high density projects being applied for and approved. And I don't want to take issue with that. My issue, just being very candid with everybody here, is the city wants to put an intersection in my property and spider roads throughout the property. And that makes it so it's hard to develop as a residential piece of property. And so this PUD, Drew recommended we apply for a PUD and our general plan amendment so that we can work with the city to try to come up with something that makes sense for everybody, the city, the neighbors. I told my wife, everyone has plans for our property except for us. The city has roads that they've planned for our property. They have a trail system they've planned to go through our property. The neighbors would like to keep our property as sheep property, which I've loved up until like this last spring. But other neighbors would like to keep our property as just whatever. So I'm just trying to work with something with the city that'll make sense, that we can develop this property in a way that works. As you know, this is not the approval for the development of the property. There'll be a PUD that'll be submitted. We're hoping to work with the city and the staff to come up with something that is, be partners on all of this. And so the access, as I understand it, will be, again, these roads that Drew is trying to draw. I don't know whether the pink one is the one going north and south. The city has actually abandoned that road. I don't have a problem with that road being there. Some people may. But again, as I say, there's an intersection right in the middle of our property, and it's kind of spidered through, roads all spidered through our property, and it just makes it difficult to develop.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
It's Reese.
Lewis Reese. Mr. Reese, thank you, Mr. Reese.
I was blessed with 2 first names and 2 last names. But
Well, and I appreciate your comments, and I heard your comments also at the Planning Commission level, and we understand there are some unique constraints with this property, so we appreciate your application and
thank you.
and you being here.
Is there any other questions that you have? or anyone
Any
on staff
questions from the council for the applicant or for staff?
So Drew, I'm having a hard time with your artwork. Can you kind of clarify where that road is proposed to go?
Yeah, I'm going to take off the hashed area. You know where the property is now, right?
Yeah.
The triangle, because it's over 2 pieces. So let me take that out, that highlight. So
Okay. I
this
see,
is
yeah.
this is the city's master transportation as of today. Mike, are you with us online? I just want to clarify about the pink line. I've heard lots of different stories. I can only go by what my master transportation plan says. I don't know if Mike is with us.
Yes, I am.
Thank you, good sir. Main Street, this is the pink one. Is that still on or has it been changed?
Nope, this is our most current master plan.
So that answers that. So Main Street is the pink line. So it's to come through, and then when it meets the river, the creek, turn to the blue, and then it'll be pushed along the edge of the creek and then tie into 100 East. So Main Street and 100 East will come together right there. And then this is the road. This used to be farther south, the east-west other connection. And then if you follow this line, it ends up at that light right there with the bank and Costco. And that's what this blue master plan road is too, is that we'll cross the creek again, and that goes all the way to the backside of Home Depot, Walmart, ties in to that light there at Costco.
So eventually you'll be able to go from Foothill just right to Costco.
Correct.
Basically.
People can come off of Washington Fields Road or 100 East or Main Street and head over that way to stay off of Telegraph and that light, the lovely light at Telegraph, Green Spring, and that area there.
Mike, I'm trying to remember what MPO said about this particular road. Is it already been funded, or is it in design, or where are we at with it?
It's just on our master plan. There's no funding. We haven't applied for funding. It would more likely be funded through impact fees because it's part of our capital facilities plan.
Okay, thank you.
If you'll stay for a minute, Mr. Reese. Mike, this is Mayor Staley. The applicant mentioned an approval in the city of St. George that would come to our boundary. Do you have any additional information on that, or is that accurate?
Well, as far as their densities and what their approvals are there, I don't have that. I've seen their layout of the development there, and they do show roads coming in, connecting to us, and it's still connecting our 840 South, which was on our old master plan.
Again, from what I understand, there's a hospital that's already approved there by Costco and other commercial property all throughout that whole Sandburg piece, but I don't have any documentation on that. That's my understanding.
It sounds like it's safe to say that this particular piece is at a crossroads, at an intersection potentially, and would take some collaboration between all of the interested parties within our municipality and our neighbors and neighboring property owners, and looking at our master transportation plan, which is a high-level plan of where our roads are planned to go. So we'll have those conversations. At this point, we're still at a really high level at a general plan amendment. And so we haven't gotten to the level to get to any of those details. I have closed the public hearing. Does this council have any further questions for the applicant or for staff before we look for a motion?
And again, just one last comment. I'm happy to work with the city on this. And again, this application, I think, gives us that flexibility to do so. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you, Mr. Reese. Comments, questions, or motion?
Mayor, I would just say, one of the benefits to the PUD is it does keep people's options open. It keeps the council's options open and the staff. And, it just kind of, I think it's a good preparation for what's to come. Eventually in the near future, we're going to have a road going through there. And I think the PUD is a good option for down the road.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments on that?
Well, the only open space right now you said was just on the creek or the little stream or the river that you called it. Is that what the open space designation is? Because it says it already is for medium density residential, and there's part of it that's open space. That's what it says on our packet.
Yeah, you can see it right now, and you can see the outline of those white lines of his property. So he just wanted to turn the whole thing PUD. Again, we kind of did this, and I think this map probably carried over. There actually has been an update on the floodplain running through there, and I don't think we went back and adjusted this map per se to that new floodplain designation that was done a couple of years back. So I don't have any issues knowing that it's PUD. Coming in, because that's the only zoning they can come in, and so we'll have a lot more say on how that creek and get the floodplain. Now I do have the opportunity to show you the floodplain. They would have to adhere to this. Right. So that's what they're up against now. Floodway, you can see that the problem he has with his property. When you look at the floodway on this, you can't do anything in a floodway. Floodplain, you can mitigate. There are options. You can build X amount, up above, etc. But floodway, you cannot. So you can see the challenge with him and the property. Even the Sandberg piece as you head up northeast. These are things they have to deal with. They can't go into that hashed area. So you can see the blue area down here. That's what I was going to point out, that zone AE. Those are areas you can mitigate, but you can see on his property, there really isn't any zone AE.
Thank you, Drew. Okay, at this point, we're considering approval of a general plan amendment, which is high level. We're at the top of the filter. I'm confident that if this is approved, we'll look more closely at the density and access questions that have been raised during the public hearing. At this point, I'll call for a motion on item 7D.
I'll do a motion if no one else has anything or questions. So I will do a motion to approve an ordinance for the general plan amendment G21-06 to change from medium density to planned unit development, residential and commercial, located approximately 600 south and 100 east.
I have a motion on the table from Casperson.
I'll second it.
A second by Henderson. We'll do a roll call vote. Ivy?
Aye.
Henderson?
Aye.
Coates?
Nay.
Casperson?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1. Moving on to item 7E. This is public hearing and consideration to approve an ordinance for general plan amendment G-21-07 to change from open space and very low density to very low density, located approximately east end of Wild Horse Ridge. Community Development Director Drew Ellerman.
Thank you, Mayor. As stated, applicant seeking another general plan amendment to this particular location. The area covers approximately 2.20 acres. The current land use designation is open space and very low density. The applicant's wishing to, in this particularly blue shaded area, turn it to the very low density. And onto a currently zoned R115 property. The surrounding general plan use designations are open space to the north and east, very low density residential to the south and west, and very low density residential and low density residential to the west. Staff has reviewed the requested change and finds no problem with the request from open space to very low density residential. The Planning Commission reviewed the request at their December 15th, 2021 meeting. The Planning Commission, by a vote of 3-1, recommend approval of G-2107 to amend the general plan use from the open space to the very low density residential. And that is onto you, the city council, as it is shown in your exhibits and shown above, attached here too. Glad to answer any question the council might have.
All right, thank you for your report, Drew. I'll look to the council for any questions for staff or for the applicant. Seeing none, I think at this point I'll open the public hearing. And I'll close the public hearing. Are there any questions, further questions for staff or the applicant, or is there someone who would like to move forward with the motion? This was reviewed in depth at Planning Commission, and
Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion. Make a motion to approve an ordinance for General Plan Amendment G-21-07 to change from open space and very low density to very low density. It's located approximately east end of Wild Horse Ridge.
I have a motion by Ivy.
Second.
Second by Coates. We'll roll call vote. Casperson.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
Ivy.
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to item 8, which is a report of officers from assigned committees. And I'll just kind of go in order of, we'll just start with Councilman Ivy and ask for any updates you have on your particular council member assignments.
I'll talk briefly about legislative policy and land use task force. There's been ongoing conversation as we've been discussing the last several months regarding retail incentives. There's been some movement on that. Recently, we will have legislative policy will be at the Capitol every Monday during the session, and this is kind of one of those hot ticket items. Other things that, of course, is those things that having a lot of discussion right now preliminarily in the last 2 or 3 months has been water, some general plan and some zonings that would allow for cross zoning for multi-housings for the ADU, accessory dwelling unit type application. But I look forward to being at the session and trying to bring back good information and keep the council informed on that.
Thank you, Councilmember Ivy. We appreciate your work, and you're about to get really busy in about a week from today when the legislature goes into session. Let's kind of go in order there. Councilman Coates, do you have any updates for us on your assignments?
Yeah, I want to talk about the solid waste district for just a minute. We moved forward with some fee changes moving forward. The biggest, the staff over there had requested for increased fees to commercial side and residential side for the dumping to help with some of they have some improvements they need to get done out there. They got to build a new scale house and a new building, and so those were moved forward. We to give a comparison, like the MSC waste was currently $28.73. They moved it to $32.50. A comparison, Moab's landfill is $38, so we're still lower than probably the normal landfills in Utah, I guess I would say. They have moved they'd requested that residents pay, and the board voted that down. So we will not, residents still, it's free to go dump at the landfill currently. And then they also, we did increase the curbside 50 cents a month to help cover some of those costs. They wanted $1. We said no, we backed it off to about 50 cents a month. So just letting you know that the fees for the curbside's going up 50 cents a month per resident, and then the fees at the site have gone up as well for commercial use, but the residential is still free to residents. And then the compost went up. That was not making any money. We were losing money big time on compost, and talking with some landscapers that the rate was so ridiculously cheap, they loved it, right? But we've bumped it from like $20 to $40, so almost doubled it, but it was way in the red. So now it should hopefully barely cover its costs. So that's the goal, is just barely cover our costs on the compost. But those are just an update on those fees.
I just want to mention with Councilman Coates, he's served on the board for the last 2 years, and just recently he's been appointed to the executive committee, which is critical for us because as we talked about earlier in public hearing and discussion, the land use is right in our backyard, and much of the traffic that goes to the landfill comes through traffic on our roads and along Telegraph. Councilman, can I just ask you maybe to share a little bit of a conversation you and I and the manager have had about covered loads and then keeping Telegraph clean? If you'd mind just touching on that a bit.
So I think yeah, definitely. So one of the biggest problems we have is Telegraph and Washington Parkway get hit extremely hard because that's where everyone has to come through Washington City to dump. If it's the trucks, if it's the residents, everybody has to come through Washington City. So one of the things that we've done is we've asked our police force to enforce the current ordinances that we had on untarped loads, because I see most of the trash coming from construction vehicles and it's just blowing out, or back of pickups or whatever. And so we've also put the sign up. Manager Red was able to get a construction sign that says, no, we're doing a no tolerance. So it doesn't matter. We want to be friends. Our goal is to not ticket everybody, but where you just can't handle the amount of trash we're seeing every day on Telegraph. So we've asked our police force to educate and write a ticket every time to help. And we also inform the other cities, and they've posted on their websites as well, that there'll be a no tolerance, and they're going to enforce the same thing, a no tolerance on their cities as well. At least I know St. George.
With the covered loads.
With covered loads. So and we're not out there to ticket. We don't want to ticket, but we just can't handle the trash that we're seeing through our community. And it's just, we have a beautiful community, so and it doesn't take that long to tarp it up just a little bit better and get it so we don't have those problems.
And I appreciate it on the Solid Waste District's website. If you go on there now, you'll see a pop-up that alerts those who are looking that the district is requiring the loads to be tarped, or there is a small fine that's associated with that. Manager Red, anything you'd like to add on just keeping Telegraph clean?
No, I think everybody's said it. I mean, the problem is we can enforce all day long and we can be out there all day long cleaning up trash, but until people change the way that they operate, it's going to be a continued problem. So I do appreciate the Solid Waste District and the county who have helped, but
for sure,
everybody needs to change the way that they do business in order for this to change.
Well, and I really appreciate the way that the conversation's happening, and appreciate your representation and appreciate your involvement as well. Any other boards that you'd like to address? I know you're newly on the power board and then still with a few familiars.
There's no more to discuss because we haven't had any. We had a power board meeting, but I was new to it, and Rick explains everything better than I do. So we'll let Rick. I don't think he has any updates today. So
we'll just make a note also that for those of you who don't know, our power director, Rick Hansen, is now a vice president with UAMS. So it's an important part of our city, and it's great to have him and his expertise there. Let's move on to Councilmember Henderson. And I know you're new and getting up to speed. Anything you'd like to share on your particular assignments? Thank you. I do know you made it to Planning Commission meeting, which is...
Yeah, and that was great. So good Planning Commission.
Well, you're going to do great. We look forward to you serving well in those assignments. And Councilmember Casperson, any comments on your assignments?
Well, I already announced the We Love the Police event. And then I met with, gosh, I just forgot his name.
Ed?
No, he's over the active transportation.
Oh, Ben Ray.
Ben, that's what I was gonna. So I met with him just before our council meeting, and he wants to schedule a time where we can do a tour together, and just kind of with how the experience with different bicycle types related to infrastructure. So we're gonna do that. I thought maybe it would be good for like a workshop meeting or something. Yeah, we have to ride our bikes around.
Is there going to be a paramedic close by for me?
I'm gonna say we can't take e-bikes. No, I'm
Oh,
just kidding, Councilman.
Object.
That's
So-
great. Anything else, Councilmember Casperson?
No.
Fantastic. I'll just touch briefly on some of my assignments, which many of them I'm new to as well. Probably the one that is mostly top of mind is my involvement with the Washington County Water Conservancy District. I did attend their board meeting last week, and they are moving forward on many projects that are designed to tap into our sources of water and be wise stewards and conservators of water. Two things they're asking for. One is they're asking for each municipality to provide an estimated number of preliminary platted lots, final platted lots, but not build and development agreement lots, so that they can reconcile that with the amount of water that they anticipate they have. So staff is working on that. The other item that I would bring back to this council is that there has been coordination amongst the municipalities on a landscape ordinance, and we'll look to bring that forward and have your involvement as we move forward. And it looks like legal counsel Thad Sigmuler's here. I know he's been heavily involved in that.
On the water conservation ordinance, that's why I missed part of council meeting today. Was I was at that meeting at the water district. Some kudos to Mayor Staley and some of our staff. I know you and staff worked to create kind of a sliding scale for the water using grass. The county and the other cities have adopted that, but we're working to collaborate to get an ordinance. We're about 85% done. There'll be one more meeting, but the goal is within the next week or two or three, we've got an ordinance so we can get the city council meeting, let our council, interact with it as you see fit. And this one is just for new development and new construction. And in theory, we'll chop at some of the other areas as time goes on. But I'm excited. We've been struggling as a county to get from concept to paper, and we're getting close.
Well, and I appreciate that. And the feedback that I've had with some of the interested groups within the community is that there's a general consensus and support for that. And I think a lot of that goes with understanding the need of the drought that we've been in and the precious resource we have. So thank you so much for your work there. I appreciate you. Washington City Economic Development, I think we'll have a lot of information tomorrow at the What's Up Down South Summit. MPO meeting is next week, and I have not been to a HAC committee meeting just yet. So that's all I think from the mayor and council. City Manager Jeremy Redd, will look to you for the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to touch on trash on Telegraph. You've done a great job hammering that a little bit. The other thing I would like to mention, I haven't figured out a way yet that you can make improvements and repair roads without causing inconvenience to residents, but I would say some are more impactful than others. The Washington Dam road improvements, those of you who travel that road or live on that road recognize how impactful those have been. I just really want to thank the residents for their patience. It's a big construction project that's going to 5 lanes all the way to Country Way. And it's a really involved project with a lot of utilities. It's going to be one of the better roads in our city when it's finished. But I just want to thank the residents for their patience. They've really been very patient, and as we construct that, I don't have an ETA, and I would hesitate to even give one, but they're working as hard as they can. They'll get it finished quickly. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Manager. And I just would like to recognize our okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 10. And so as has been done at times in the past, we've listed the 3 different scenarios in which the council can move into closed session. And so that does not necessarily mean that we will move into closed session or that we would move into closed session for all 3 items. They've been on there as to give us the flexibility to do that if needed. We'll try it out. If it gets abused, we can always adjust the way we bring that agenda forward, but we're going to try it out. Today, there is need to move into a closed session for item A, which is purchase, exchange, or lease of property, and item B, which is pending or potential litigation. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to move into closed session for those items.
So made, Mayor.
We have a motion by Ivy,
Second.
second by Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll take a 5-minute break and meet in the conference room for closed session. Thank you.